Welcome one, welcome all. Thank you so much for joining us at the December edition of the Columbus Tableau User Group. Happy holidays to you all. If you're already celebrating the holidays or getting ready to, we can guarantee 99.99% guarantee that this will do nothing but put you in the proper mood, the proper spirit for the holidays. We have an excellent agenda today. A couple of returning superstars. Michael will be joining us, last seen probably a year and a half ago at Ohio State for one of our TUG meetings. And then Scott, I believe it's been a couple of years. I know that it was at the public library, probably before I was co-leading the TUG, but I mean, a fantastic presentation then, and I know it's a similar topic today, so looking forward to that. And if that wasn't enough, you're saying, can there actually be more? Yes. Aaron and I, just to show that we are not wimps, and I probably tried to talk us out of this, but Aaron said, Steve, stop being a wimp. We're trying a new session, a new segment called Learning from Our Peers. So excited for that. Fingers crossed. I'm a little nervous, but nervous with excitement at how great it's going to be. So with that, let's get on with the program. If you do not know, or if you need remembering, or you just want to hear me say it again, I'm Steve Bartos, one of your co-leaders. I currently am part of the Corporate Advanced Analytics team at Worthington Industries. Welcome. Over to you, Aaron.
Awesome. I am Erin Ham. I currently work for Comcast in their technology product experience group doing cybersecurity engineering. And I help co-lead this with Steve. Now on to Derek. He is finally in attendance as a panelist, and so he gets to introduce himself.
It's a very dramatic pause, Derek, if you're using one. I think Derek may have passed out from the excitement of being a panelist. Derek, we cannot currently hear you. Or the applause has appropriately died down if you were waiting for that as well. We may have to come back to Derek. Derek says, welcome. Thank you, Steve and Aaron, for the unbelievable job you do. Tableau for life, Tableau for life. So.
Wait, what about now?
There you go.
There we go.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Sorry. No tech support here. No, it's great to be a panelist. It's great to have access to the VIP room today. The spread back here is absolutely amazing. The champagne was a nice touch. Great to talk to everybody. Derek Shreve here. I am a local Tableau rep out of Columbus, Ohio. I always say it when I come on these, but if you need to talk to your Tableau rep and you don't know who that is, I am happy to make that connection for you. Just ping me in the chat with your email and I'll let you know. But it's great to be here for another TUG. Who do I toss it to, Bartos?
Over to you, Aaron.
Yeah, so just a quick question, and feel free to raise your hand if you did experience this. Is anyone having, or did you have trouble logging into the Zoom meeting today? Okay, looks like we've got about 3 people. I've had a couple people reach out on LinkedIn as well, saying they're unable to get into the meeting.
Okay.
Rasta. He's still on.
Let me take a look. Just right. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that, guys. We have a couple people that are trying to get in and unable to. One person says they received 2 links, only one worked. Are we able to blast out the group with the correct link right now?
Yeah, let me do that right now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And then Aaron, I'll go ahead and copy that and put it on the LinkedIn page in case folks are out there.
Awesome.
Well.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Good call. All right.
I'm posting to Meet. Sorry about this, guys, but on the bright side, this is our first technical difficulty since we went virtual. Knock on wood. Perfect. Well, while we're getting that fixed, we'll go ahead and kick it off to Michael Warling, who's going to be getting us started with Intro to Tableau and getting started So talking about the do's and don'ts of ramping up with Tableau, what resources are most valuable along your journey, and what training and resources are available to you?
Awesome. Thanks very much, Aaron. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's do this. And then you can see my nice messy desktop because, we're good. So thank you for having me. Everybody, if you don't know me or haven't spoken with me before, my name is Michael Warling. I'm a Principal Success Manager from Tableau. Prior to that, I was with Nationwide Insurance for about 18 years. So I'm local to the Central Ohio area. I love everything that Aaron and Steve and the team do with this local tug. So I'm really excited to be able to participate. So Erin reached out to me and she asked me to talk about how to train up on Tableau, how to learn Tableau. It kind of made me chuckle a little bit because one of the things that I tell my customers quite frequently is I've made more attempts than you, or I've failed more times than you've made attempts. And so I really do like to share my experiences in the terms of I know what not to do more than I know what really to do quite a lot. So to preface that, I am not a classroom learner. I went to school for enough years to make me a doctor. Unfortunately, I don't have a degree. And Tableau, I kind of took the training in the same way. I just kind of learned through Google searches and picked up a trick here and there. And the one thing that I always hit myself on the head with is every time I went to a formal training class, I'm like, holy crap, I've been doing this wrong for 3 years. And so over the years, I've come to appreciate the value of actual, structured and intentional training. Maybe not necessarily classroom training. We're in a virtual world and everything like that. But taking an intentional approach to educating yourself rather than just letting it happen via osmosis or experience or time is really going to set you apart from the peers. So where I want to go with this is tell you, I'll give you some of the ad hoc resources that I use that I found very valuable, but I really want to give you guys an understanding of what the true value of training yourself as an analyst with Tableau and any other analysis tool, and how that can really help you be a better analyst, how it can advance your career, a lot of other things that could go with it. So the one thing that, if you guys know our mission statement, Tableau helps people see and understand data. And one of the things that we love about Tableau is that people are fanatical. I don't have to tell anybody here on this user group, you're all here for a specific reason, but there's two kinds of people that love Tableau and use it day in and day out. And then there's the people that haven't really heard about Tableau yet. So there's no real in between. You either really love it or you don't. And the value of that really shines through. Anytime you need help, you go to a Google search and there's already so many people that not only have had the same problem as you, but want to share their experiences with the community. So our community and our people is one of the differentiators from our analysis platform from any other platform that we have. So we are almost pervasive across a whole bunch of industries and a whole bunch of different logos and everything like that. There's hardly any organizations on the Fortune 100 that don't use Tableau in some way, shape, or form. Some use it larger than others. But here's why, right? Tableau scales. It goes both up and it goes side to side. So everybody can have access to Tableau at some form or another. And it can go all the way deep enough to be an enterprise grade platform. I'm sure many of you work in an organization where Tableau is a well-structured and organized account, where it's a standard or it's the go-to platform for sharing and analyzing data. And others of you probably at organizations that are a little more ad hoc, but we use Tableau because it gets the job done better. So we go across, we bring the data to wherever everybody else is. The great thing about that, and one of the wonderful things about that, is that means Tableau can be anything for anybody. So a lot of times people come to me and say, Michael, you're trying to tell me I need to take training, but all your advertisement and all your hosting is that Tableau is easy. It's simple and it's so easy. So why do I need to take training? And I really want to kind of dig into that one before I get into the hows and what's about it. So to me, Tableau is like backgammon. It's a game, if you're not familiar with it, that's almost idiot simple. You roll some dice, you move your pips around the board to one side before your opponent does. You can teach a 4-year-old how to play backgammon in about 10 minutes. It's not a complicated game. However, there's strategy behind it. There's learnings to do. There's education that you can do to become a better player. So much to the point that there are actually world backgammon championships with huge purses. So it is something that you can enjoy as a 4-year-old, and you can also be a professional backgammon player, and everywhere in between. Tableau, I think, is the same way. You could pick up Tableau pretty quickly, dink around, watch a couple of 3-minute videos, and actually be pretty successful with creating something that is effective. But if you spend some time and some effort into it, you start going up the tier, right? So what I'm showing on my screen right now is kind of the goal that we want to get to. So an individual analyst is one person, right? But as you get everyone educated across the board, you take that a level up. And so you have enabled. And then you foster creativity, and then you have collaborations, and then you're going to have an enterprise grade platform. But the bottom point of that is this is foundational, right? You as an individual analyst can't just cursory know Tableau. You have to understand it, and everybody has to understand it. So like I said at the beginning, I've made more failures than most people have made attempts at Tableau. I first picked up Tableau sometime around 2007. Was version 4.0. It was actually right before Tableau Server was even launched. It was right before dashboards were even a thing back in Tableau. And then I've been working for Tableau professionally for about 2 years now. So a little bit more than a decade that I taught to teach myself and train myself in Tableau. By the end of that 10 years, I think I was pretty good at it. I wouldn't call myself a Zen master or an Iron Viz champion, but I do feel like I had a good grasp on the tool, but it took 10 years. So obviously that's not a great career path for many people. If you want to get good at something, 10 years is it's a little far out there for most people. So what I want to do today is kind of maybe shorten that down to 10 months for you guys, depending on where you are on that journey. Why? What's some other things? So hey, I told you it's good for your career. What does that actually mean? So this is a report that came out from Accenture. It's a couple years old now, but it's really important, right? What this is really telling you is that there are certain skill sets that you develop that are marketable, that are industry critical to people hiring, right? So analytical subject matter expert, i.e. knowing how to use analysis. That doesn't mean tool specific necessarily. It means I know how to ask questions and I know how to get those answers. And then leadership and management are the other thing along that. So training yourself in Tableau actually provides you not only Tableau skill set, but also marketable skills to do that. Let's be completely honest. Things are transient, right? I've been using Tableau for 10 years, but 10 years from now, is Tableau really going to be the thing? I don't know. But is analytical skills and subject matter expertise going to be a thing? You betcha it is. So take in mind that you're going to train yourself. You're going to learn Tableau, but you're also going to learn skill sets that will follow you throughout the rest of your career. So don't look at it as just tool training. Look at it as providing yourself a data literate opportunity. So back in March, when the pandemic first went full screen, Tableau said, well, what can we do to help our people? Because we focus on people. So we launched this free platform where we gave away our e-learning for free. It's something that we, historically had charged a significant amount of money for. And then just at the beginning of the year, we dropped that price down to about $140 a year. So it's pretty approachable for most individuals. But we said, you know what, this pandemic is hitting everybody in the gut. So let's go ahead and make it free. So we provided it just carte blanche, 3 months, go for it. And we had a huge outpouring for this. Everybody was really excited about it. It went to show not only that people really want to educate themselves, but they also wanted to educate themselves on Tableau. We took that, so it wasn't just a free thing we gave away, right? It was a give-get. We took all the feedback from everybody and we enhanced it. We made things better. We fixed everything. We realized the gaps, and I'll talk about some of those gaps a little later in my talk. But I would say now that our e-learning is world-class at this point. It prepares you for industry-grade certifications and everything along those lines. Don't get me wrong, this isn't a sales pitch. I'm not going to try and sell you anything or tell you it's worth spending the money on this. What I'm telling you is that the e-learning itself, when it was free, everybody jumped on it and they found value out of it. And you really see the impact it made in these 42,000 companies that participated. You ever want to just kind of validate what's going on? Go out to Google Trends and pop in a search like this. So I just did this earlier this morning. So Tableau jobs, Tableau certification, that's going up. Like I said, this isn't a sales pitch, so I didn't add other comparisons for competitors, but if you feel the need to do so, it's kind of an entertaining comparison outside of that. But regardless of that point, set that aside, we can see there's a distinct upward trend, and it's not really going too many directions, right? We're going up. People are looking for Tableau jobs. People are looking for Tableau certification. People want people that understand Tableau for their enterprise grade applications. So I'm going to run you through in kind of brief what Tableau offers professionally and officially. I'm going to tell you a couple of things that I do on the side as well that really help that. But I do want to let you know that, again, this is something that historically, if I would have looked back and said, Michael, what could I have done better with my 10 years? I would have done some training. I would have really spent some classroom time. It really would have made me way further ahead of my career than I currently am. So This isn't just me saying, you guys need to take this training. This is me saying, man, I wish I had these opportunities 10 years ago. So as we go along, I'm going to share some of these specifics that Tableau offers and the kind of grades on that. And then we'll have plenty of time to talk through it and give you some anecdotal experiences as well. Feel free to screenshot this because I think this is a great slide. This is something that I really help people understand where Tableau meets everybody where they're at, right? So on the left-hand side is, hey, I use Tableau sometimes. It's a cool thing to play with. On the right-hand side is, I'm getting paid to do Tableau, or I'm getting paid to be a data science or an analyst, and this is my job on a full-time span. And this is where kind of we put the types of learning that we provide, right? So on the far left, we're going to go through it a little bit. There's a whole bunch of free videos. If you've ever hit our website, it's the first thing that hits you in the face is, product demos, educations, how to connect to data, what the product does for an enterprise, customer stories, just educating yourself on things that Tableau does. What is Tableau? How does it provide value to the enterprise? How do I get started with it? A couple other things that are in there too are, the customer stories that you can read into. So you're not just learning Tableau as a tool, but you're knowing Tableau as a function or a platform. So if you're in a business meeting and somebody says, man, I really could use a visualization on this data. So, I think this Tableau thing might be something that could help out with that too, because I read this story where, Verizon or Comcast or AT&T executed with Tableau on that specific problem that you're describing. So you're not just educating yourself on how to use the tool, you're also educating yourself on what the tool does. So you get through that conversation and then your peer looks at you and says, cool, can you do that Tableau for me? Yeah, no, I'm not there yet. So you need to ramp up from that, right? So this is where you go to the e-learning, right? Like I said, it's not a super cost of, it's not a huge investment in cost, but it's a huge amount of content. It's self-paced and you can go in depth with it. Ideally, our e-learning will prepare you for our certifications if you go through the whole thing at a specific process. All the content there is what the certifications are provided for. It is like a classroom style learning, but it's in person. So you go through modules, you go through everything like that, take quizzes at the end and everything like that. And there's activities where you got to get into the tool, get your hands dirty and stuff like that. And it's really good. At that point, you'd probably be really set to say, hey, I'm going to put some operational dashboards out there for my department so we can see what's going on with our business. I wouldn't say you'd be really set to be, going out into the professional world and like, hey, this is an enterprise-wide dashboard that services thousands and thousands of people. But can you answer specific questions about data after that e-learning? Absolutely. Very, very good, right? Then you're going to go to, hey, I'm starting to think that this Tableau or this analysis path could be my career. So you really want to put some time into it. So this is when you really get instructor-led training. This is where you need somebody to walk you through and talk to you. Classroom learning, education, higher education, all these kind of things. This is where you're really investing your time, not just, off hours in the evening or anything like that, but this is my time. I'm going to invest in my career and my future. So there's a lot of different ways we can do that. We can do these virtual trainings where, you can go, just log into a WebEx for 2 or 3 days in a row, get a hands-on training, do some activities, talk to a classmate, talk to an instructor and go from that. And then you go on to the next one where, you can do that either individually or public or private, and it gets all the way to the far right-hand side. This is where our services team would actually work with your organization and say, tell me how, how Chase really operates with data. Let's custom tailor a training plan for Chase and using Tableau together and kind of integrating that point and that. And this is where your organization or your corporate entity has invested, corporate funds, enterprise funds to make Tableau something that's important. And this whole spectrum in here, there's a lot of other things in there you can do that don't necessarily take money, but maybe take time and effort. Things like Makeover Mondays or Tableau Tuesdays, some of the things that are either hosted by Tableau or the ones that are hosted by individuals like Andy Kriebel that are just really excited about Tableau, right? And then there's just Tableau Public. If you guys have never been out to Tableau Public, it's amazing. People that are just, like I said, they're passionate about Tableau. They make visualizations based on, hey, I saw Bigfoot sightings, or I like Major League Baseball, and they post those visualizations up on Tableau Public. One of the best things you can do is grab those visualizations and reverse engineer them. Work backwards to somebody who's way better than you at the skill has already done. You're going to get great ideas around that. The other thing is our webinars. We host webinars that are either very topical, specifically like industry-wide, like, hey, let's look at how automotive is using Tableau, or let's look at how telecommunications is using Tableau, or maybe we go deeper than that, saying here's a specific customer and how they're executed on that. But all those webinars are hosted several times a week. They're hosted through our website. They're just free. They're open to anybody that wants to learn and see how customers are using it. But again, it's just kind of a on-demand consumable format that's out there. So, there's lots of different things you can do around that in addition to that classroom training that kind of supplement and augment that. The other thing that is really great about our training is especially the e-learning. We do a little bit more on the classroom training, but we decided to kind of split out these role paths, right? So how do people consume Tableau? Not everybody does it the same way. You've got people that are reading reports that you provided. You've got other people that are providing those reports. You've got other people that are data scientists that use Tableau as their last layer after they've done their analysis and everything like that. So we decided to break out our training into role paths. And what's really great about it is you can just kind of consume it for who you are, what your function is. I'm an executive sponsor, or I'm just a data steward, meaning I'm in the business and I understand my business data, but I don't necessarily need to create visualizations or dashboards about that. And what's really great about this is you can pick and choose based on what you do with Tableau, not just, hey, I got to go through the whole classroom training and all I really want to do is read a report that somebody sends me. But you can kind of parse it out and split it up. We even do on the other side of it, hey, I'm in the IT realm, I'm an architect. This is how I'm supporting the rest of the organization. Well, we want to train you as well. We want to make sure that you are equipped to understand where that comes from and what everyone else is doing from that. So moving on from that, like I said at the beginning, we realized when we gave that free e-learning out to everybody that there was a huge gap. There was this huge assumption that Tableau was making when they were providing this e-learning out to everyone, and that was data literacy. Data literacy, if you break it down, it's really kind of speaking the language of data. Not necessarily knowing, hey, I know how to write a SQL statement to join cross-join a data set with an Excel document. That's not exactly what we're talking about data literacy. Data literacy is foundational. I understand what data means. Do you understand what the term null means? Do you understand the difference between a blank and a null? Do you understand what happens when you join data? Things like that we made an assumption as data people ourselves that we were giving away this free e-learning and people came to us with that baseline foundational data literacy learning. So one of the things that we just launched at our virtual conference a couple months ago was this data literacy for everyone, and it's free. So our e-learning itself, like I said, is pretty cost effective, but this data literacy section, we just put it out there for free. This is something that we've recommended to everyone from C-level executives to mailroom workers that just want to consume a dashboard that someone's giving to them. But knowing data literacy and being able to speak about this right now sets us apart a little bit. So being able to talk about field values, or being able to talk about accuracy of data, or promptness of data and things like that, you're marketable being able to that. In the next 5 years, I'd say, that's my personal guesstimation, being data literate is going to be a requirement for almost every IT or data related field. Just knowing what data does and how you use it is something good. So we've been providing this out to everyone. It's on our website, it's free, but we're recommending it to everyone. Even, hey, I know you're not a Tableau customer, but this is free. We use Tableau as the vehicle, but the data literacy skills are something that they go across any platform, tool agnostic the whole way. So if you do nothing else for my entire talk today, please at least explore this data literacy and realize that we're not just training Tableau, we're training a foundational skill that people are going to need in the future. And being prepared for that now sets you apart from a lot of people that aren't data literate. I'm sure that you've all been in the experience when you're working with a customer who says, I want my report to do this, and they're asking for something that foundationally is incorrect. It's not just not possible. It's the fact that you're asking that question means you don't understand data at all. And so this is the kind of thing we would say, hey, softly and gently, of course, because we're not rude, you might want to take this training about data literacy so we can have a conversation about the same thing. Let's speak the same language and we can talk about what we really need to do to solve your business problems rather than just asking for something that may or may not be relevant or possible. So I do want to tap into certifications, right? Certifications, it is a paid certification. It is industry-wide, and there are a spread. There's 3 different levels of certification plus a server certification. Why would you want to get certified? Go back to my Google Trends search. People are looking for certified Tableau developers. These are not easy tests. I'm sure everybody, or probably not everybody, but many people on this call have either taken the test or have known someone who has. And our failure rate's really high. We don't have like a 80 to 90% success rate for our tests. They're really hard, intentionally so. We don't want to give away our certifications to everybody that just kind of read a book and hopped on and took a test, right? We want these to be respected in the industry. We want these certifications to be valuable to our customers and the people that are hiring our customers, right? So it's valuable, it's worth it. The first level of associate is kind of, I've used Tableau for about 3 months, and you pop in and like, not just use Tableau as terms of I took the training classes, but use Tableau as in I've done things in my business with Tableau, or I've explored the opportunities that I have. The next level up is you've used Tableau for about a year, maybe a little less, 8, 9 months, something like that. And it goes up from there. So like these are something that is really worth aspiring to if you haven't gotten there yet. And they do set you apart for career development, both internally to an organization. Hey, I'm ready for that promotion, so I am now certified in order to have that promotion. But also externally, right? I'm looking for a different function, a different role. I want to make myself marketable to the larger industry. Having a Tableau certification is super important and valuable to that point. So that is my spiel, my bit about training and certification. I think that I would love to hear some feedback if there are questions out there. Aaron, Steve, anything we've got that the audience is asking about? All right, I'm gonna pop into chat here.
So we have one, where can I find free data literacy learning link?
Yeah, so let's just share the screen and do that, right? Let's go to tableau.com. All right. Oh, I'm not sharing anymore. Oh, I should probably do that. Share my screen. All right. Let me bring this over here so everybody can see it. There we go. So yeah, if we go out to tableau.com/learn/data literacy hyphenated. To be honest with you, I don't memorize that because Google is awesome for this kind of thing. So just pop those kind of things into Google. You do have to, sign up for a Tableau ID, an account with the tableau.com. If you've been to any event, you probably already have a Tableau ID. But then once you get there, it is right away part of that e-learning that you have access to. Additionally, the e-learning that I was talking about, there's kind of samples for every one of those role-based, like I believe even like the executive sponsor and the data consumer are paths that are free of cost as well. So there's some things that are in front of the paid firewall for our e-learning that you don't even have to pay. You just have to create an account to get that started with. Additionally to that data literacy, if you guys, if you participated in our virtual conference, you probably were aware of this, but there was, we launched this at the conference, and there were actually a couple of talks by some people, a panel, and from one of the authors of the data literacy program. Really worth the watch. And not only talks about what the data literacy program is intended to do, but also dives a little bit into some of the modules that are inside that data literacy. So it's exciting to see. I watched that and I was kind of like, oh yeah, I've known that exact thing. I've just never been able to articulate why data literacy is so critical in our professions, right? So great question. What other questions do we have out there?
Can you share the link for the different Tableau certification paths?
You got it. All right.
Hey, Michael, and Aaron, you may certainly have some input to this. As you were, working with folks, I'm thinking back probably to both your careers at Nationwide. Where's the logical first step in terms of putting together something more programmatic? I'm thinking folks out there that may be tasked with, hey, we got a group of folks and I want to help organize the effort of, upskilling people. And
yeah, I love that question, Steve, because what I focused on this conversation is very much about the individual self-guided, people that are passionate about advancing their own careers they're going to do this stuff anyway. When you get at a corporate or organizational level, the first thing you need to do is get an executive sponsor to buy into this. Someone who believes that training people in Tableau or upskilling or reskilling people within Tableau and analysis is a valuable use of time and money, right? So if you're going to put 10 or 15 people in a classroom for 3 days, it's not free. There's dollars associated with that, and there's also hours, labor hours associated with that. So in order to put together something structured, you need somebody that believes it's the right path to go through. That would be my number one first place to go to get a sponsor. I know I'll let Aaron speak a little bit, but Aaron actually has done this probably more than once. So Aaron probably knows a little more on the details of the logistics around it.
Yeah, so from a detailed and logistics standpoint, I would say try to leverage as much of the material that Tableau provides as possible. So the first thing that we leveraged at Nationwide when I was with them was the Skills Belt program. And so that Skills Belt program, we took that and customized it to what we thought our internal customers' needs were, or our analyst needs were. Once we had that, we had a few people do some test runs through that, rereading the white papers, watching the videos, making sure the links worked, and then we rolled it out to our entire bases of individuals. Along with rolling out that training is workshops, putting together workshops, whether that's an hour workshop for executives or 30-minute workshop for executives versus a full day worth of a workshop for folks to come and actually learn Tableau from start to finish. And sometimes when you're teaching Tableau, it's not just about teaching the application. You have to have also, it's nice to know how to tell a story with your data. And so a lot of times people are like, oh, this application's really cool. I can build all these fancy graphs. It's nice that you can build all these great graphics, but unless you can tell a story with those graphics to present to your executives, it's going to be a lot harder to justify continuing to learn more and more about this application.
Very good.
I do want to put a plug for Stephanie Marvin. I don't know if she's on the call or not, but she works with Nationwide still, and she is putting together a lot of the Skills Belt programs and continuing educations internal to that group.
And I just, to everyone listening, you probably saw it in the chat, please let us know. Oh, thanks, there's Stephanie. I was going to say, please let us know if this is a topic. I know it's a bit tangential to the, I think it's related to the, individual development of the Tableau user. But let us know if this is a topic you'd like to visit in more detail and depth in terms of scaling up those programs and being that agent of change to get this rolling at your organization, or of, taking it to the quote unquote next level. So please let us know.
Okay. And it looks like we have one more question from Brian. He asked, would you mention a little about the difference between the desktop and the server?
Yeah, that's a great question.
That's in relation to the certification exams.
Yeah, I think that it's pretty straightforward. The server exams are focused on architecture and infrastructure. So providing that Tableau server environment, making sure it's performant, understanding governance, understanding the rest of the network stack and things like that. Whereas the desktop training is focused much more on content creation, storytelling, and analysis skills. So they don't really cross over very much. Very rarely do you have individuals that are skilled in both content development and server management, because they actually kind of polar opposites. So server management's much more about keeping the boxes together and making sure everything's regimented and clean, whereas the desktop and analysis paths are more about being creative and thinking outside the box. So we intentionally divided those up to make sure that we're educating the right people on the right skill sets specific to their function, their job. Good. All right, feel free, everyone. My email address, mwarling@tableau.com. This literally is my job. I help enable, educate, and uplift my customers and my users. So feel free to reach out to me with any additional follow-ups you guys have. But I appreciate you giving me time to talk, Steve and Aaron, and I'll go ahead and stop sharing and pitch it back over to you guys.
Perfect, thanks, Michael. So next up we have Scott Eaton, and he is going to be talking about documentation and best practices that he's gone through. He works with Chase currently, and so with that, we'll kick it over to Scott.
Hi guys, thanks. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to kind of impart this knowledge. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay. Thanks everybody for the interest in the topic here. This is a topic that is kind of near and dear to my heart. It is, and I'll put this out there first and foremost. This is something in my everyday job that I hate to do. And I'm sure everybody else hates to do this, who likes doing documenting. But as I think most people have found out over the course of things, it is a necessary evil. And it's something just frankly that just needs to be done. So kind of my purpose today is to go through here, kind of give you guys a template that you can use to start going down that road to documentation, whether it be for audit purposes or just having something in place to have somebody pick up to be able to quickly go through your dashboards. So with that being said, I'll start out with my disclaimer here, that the presentation I'm going to give is just based on my own experiences of what has worked well on teams I've been on. It's not definitive, but just please use as an example of a starting point for creating a template. Little information about myself. I'm a data visualization manager at Chase. I'm part of the Human Resources Chief Data and Analytics Office dashboarding team. I develop dashboards. I do a big piece of the BAU part of that related to security. And I'm also responsible for keeping track of our documentation and design standards that we use on our team. I am, excuse me, I've been doing this for about 15 years now. Started out, I'm based here in Columbus. I started out for 6.5 years of my career working at the Wexner Medical Center, using Oracle's tool. Then I switched from the public to the private sector and have been using Tableau ever since. And currently I'm on my 8th year of using Tableau. So just a little bit of background there. And I currently at Chase, we have a Tableau Academy. I have the designation of being a Jedi Grandmaster through Chase. And I am also professional, or I do have the desktop certification as well. So with that being said, kind of go through a few things we're going to talk about today. First thing we're going to go through is why do you document your dashboards? Okay, the topic here is the why, hows, and what's of documentation. So we're going to first talk about why, and then kind of break it down between audit purposes and then just avoiding excessive time to have to reverse engineer and review a dashboard. Then we'll kind of go into how you document your dashboard, kind of what to do, font sizes, things like that. And then finally, we'll dive into what should be in your template. And these are the I believe there's 10 or 11 areas there to kind of break your document into. So first things first, why you should document your dashboard. Basically, for me, documentation is one of the worst parts of my role, and has been for every team that I have been on. It is a necessary evil, and it does, if done properly, it will definitely save you or someone else's time in the future. And kind of I found there's been basically two main reasons you would want to do your documentation. Either for audit purposes, and this is not just specific to being in a bank. I've been in other over at OSU and other places to where they still have auditing procedures in place. that you may need to have to follow where documentation is required, and decrease time in reverse engineering. So as it relates to auditing, most companies do have some process in place where there's audits, and they normally want to see documentation as part of that process. So it's definitely a good idea to get it done up front rather than wait to have a failed audit come through. And part of that failed audit, one of those actions would be to create documentation. So it's a good idea to just get that documentation right up front, so you don't have to worry about spending time later to get that taken care of. Second piece of that being decreased time in having to reverse engineer. Now I know as I've gone through my career, there have been times where I've had to either support something because somebody's on vacation, or I've had to kind of take ownership of somebody possibly for the role that I've been filled for the person that has left that role. And without having that documentation in place, there have been times where I've spent a week or more going into a dashboard, picking it apart, looking at the measures, the dimensions and things like that to try to reverse engineer the dashboard to kind of piece it together how it works, especially when there's instances where it's not apparent. When you have proper documentation, you can kind of eliminate that time frame. You can take that time frame down from 1 week to maybe a day or so. Proper documentation will give you a better understanding of what's going on, and it will drastically cut down your review time on things. How do you document your dashboard? The tool you use is very simple. Any document I've created has always been in some type of word processing document. There are a few tools out there that I have been able to do some research on, third-party tools where they do some form of documentation or another, to where they go in and basically read the XML of the workbook to pull out the information. I found that to me doesn't work too well with kind of the data we're trying to impart. So this is kind of a manual process. I would love it, and I haven't put this idea out there, but if somebody would love to go out and put an idea in there about actually putting a feature in Tableau to be able to pull out and do this type of documentation, that would be phenomenal to kind of automate the process. But as of yet, this is it for myself. This is a fully manual process. But again, it can be used in any word processing tool, whether it's Word or some of the other word processing tools out there. You just want to make sure that if you're doing it, when you're doing it in the word processing tool, you want to kind of stick to some of the following guidelines. Make sure it's easily accessible and easy to use. Make sure you have a table of contents in your document, because of the many parts in the document. And sometimes the documentation, depending on the complexity of your dashboard, can be quite long. So if a person who's looking at the documentation wants to get to just a specific part of it, let's say they just want to look at the calculated fields, or they just want to look, okay, what fields are in your data source. You don't want to have them scroll through the entire document to get to that information. Or have to read, not so much scroll through, but read through it before they can get to what they need. So you can either do it one of two ways. You can either just use a table of contents page put in there, or what I've done in my documents, basically I've created like links, bookmark links at the top of the document to get to each section. And then make sure that your bookmarks, if you're going the bookmark route, make sure that you associate them with the correct section in the table of contents, so again that they can navigate to that quickly. Make sure you're using a standard font type and size. I would recommend using a font type and size that if you do have good best practices in place for your dashboards, it should be something similar, just so that way your document is very readable. The standard font types that you can use, Calibri, Times New Roman, or Arial. and standard font size is about 12 point for main text and 14 point for section headings. And then once complete, you want to, and you can put a little, because you're going to start working on this as you go. So this part you may come to this kind of analysis before you're done. But once complete, you want to determine who the audience of the document is and make sure that it's saved it's in a location that's easily accessible to that audience. So that way, whether that be on a share drive, whether you can potentially email it out to, if it's a small set of users, just email it out to them. But just make sure it's in some kind of centralized location that's easy for everybody to get to. So with that being said, now we kind of go into the key piece of the document. What should be in your template that you're creating? That's going to kind of put the most detail with hopefully as little effort as possible. So in the template that I have created, we've got 11 key sections in that document. First, we've got your revision history. Pretty self-explanatory what that is, basically just to track your document changes. Your summary of data, what's going to be in there, that's going to have your high-level information, such as your business owner, who your developers are, refresh frequency, etc. Access roles, this is kind of the security piece of your dashboard. So it's basically just going to kind of document the security setup for your dashboard. Purpose of the report, and I use throughout this report and dashboard interchangeably. But basically purpose of report, description of the dashboard. So that can either be one sentence or it could be a paragraph. Normally what I have in our documentation we do is I normally kind of get that description from whoever the business/product owner is, and that's what I put into the document. Report illustration, that's just going to be screenshots of your dashboard. So if you have somebody going in who's especially a new employee you have on your team that has never seen the dashboard before and maybe has not been able to get access to the environment, having the screenshots in this document will be very helpful. They can go into the document and see, okay, here's how each part of your dashboard is laid out. Available filters. These are the filters available for the users to use in the dashboard. These are normally all your global filters for the most part, but they can be page specific or view specific. Predefined filters, a little bit different. And these are filters that are not made available to the users, but are global across the entire dashboard. So anything you have that in Tableau's terms, you would consider a normal filter, that you're filtering everything on your dashboard globally, but you're not allowing the user to change. That could also mean things related to filtering for row level security and things such as that too. I did not include this in this section. This section's been a little bit modified since I created this PowerPoint, but parameters/sets. So basically any parameters or sets that you're using in the dashboard. And excuse me. So basically anything in there parameter wise that maybe allows for the user to change the dimensionality of the data, as well as for view swapping and same for the sets. Calculated fields. This is where you're going to list out any of the calculated fields that have been created based on the fields that are being directly pulled from the data source. And this can also be, you can put things in here that are also based on other calculated fields. Then finally, fields in the data source. So these are just listing out your fields that are being directly pulled in from the data. And then I apologize, I skipped one. After purpose of report, we have data sources. So this is going to list all the data sources that are being used in the dashboard. So now we're going to kind of go into each section and kind of break down the components of it. So basically have your revision history at the top of your document so you can usually see, again, the revisions that are in there. Should have it listed in a table. I recommend having it in a table with the following columns having name in there, what the version, And how you want the version is entirely up to you. For us, we would include the major and the minor versions, but what your definition of what constitutes a major and minor version is based on what the standard is set by you or your team. And then basically having the date of the revision, and then description, basically what was modified in that version. Because there may be instances that something was removed that you maybe want to go back and look at. And that goes to my last note, basically save off separate copies of each version. So that way, if you do need to go back and revisit versions for things that were in that version but removed out of later versions, you have the ability to be able to go back and do that. Next up, summary details. This is going to contain all the high-level business and developer information related to the dashboard. And what I've got listed here is basically the main components and what you should have in there. Report name, so basically what's the business name of the dashboard, who the business owner is, so their contact information, business function, okay, what line of business are they a part of, the report owner, and this is basically, and this could be the same if you're doing it for your team, then this probably would be the same as the business owner, but basically who's the owner of the dashboard on the technology side of stuff. So normally I put here, if I'm the one being the developer, the report owner would be my manager. Again, the report developer, so who actually developed the dashboard. We have a ticket number in here. We use Jira as our ticketing system for those of you who are familiar with it. So whatever method you're using to kind of track your book of work, I would include, whether that's a ticket number or some other mechanism, I would make sure that's in here so you can actually tie this document back to that ticket number or that method. Again, also helps for auditing purposes. Frequency, basically this is the refresh frequency of the dashboard. This can be different than the data source refresh, but a lot of times you'll find it's the same, but this is just the frequency of the overall dashboard. Production go live, just kind of the date when the dashboard went live, just so you could have a reference point, especially if you're doing, if you're kind of looking at usage in the future to make sure your dashboard's getting used and who is actually using it, having kind of a baseline of when that dashboard went out, that can get you started on that road. Data source name, this is going to be the names, and right now just in this section we're only listing out the names of the data sources. So this could be one data source. If your dashboard has multiple data sources, just make sure you kind of list out the names of those. The actual URL for the dashboard, so we put the production link in here of where it resides on our server. So if whoever's looking at this is not quite sure, they can just click on the link in the document and easily be taken out there. And then the documentation URL. So basically the URL where this document is going to reside, as well as any other documents related to the dashboard. You want to make sure you have that URL listed in there as well. Next section, access roles and purpose of report. So next two sections here. For the access roles, this is going to just contain information related to the security setup of your dashboard. Do not put your user list there. You do not need to document who all your users are. That's not the important thing for this section. Basically, you want to use this section to display data on the groups that you're using, or again, how your access is set up. So basically, if you're using Active Directory groups, if you're using LDAP groups, this is where you would list out those groups. There's a few ways you can list it out. You can list out in the document itself the groups that your users have access to, or you can do, in the case that I've done, is I maintain basically a mapping document that has the list of all of our products that we produce and all the Active Directory groups that those are aligned to. And then I have a separate section that lists out the groups by role. Okay, here's our developer roles, here's our tester roles, and here's our user roles, and basically just a description by those. And basically all I have in that section is I have a link to that document, and then I have listed in there for our Active Directory groups who the approvers are on those groups, just in case there's any questions in the approval process. Next section after that, purpose of report. This is what I mentioned earlier about this can either be one sentence or a paragraph. I wouldn't make it too wordy in here, but this is basically supposed to be just serve as a brief overview of the intended use of your dashboard. And again, should describe basically what the dashboard is trying to solve for and who the user base is. Next up, the data source piece. There's quite a few sections in this data source piece. This is probably one of the first sections you want to try to have as thoroughly notated as possible. So that way, if there's any issues related to the data side as you're going through your dashboards, you definitely have this notated well, and it will make it a lot easier for troubleshooting. So this is basically going to give you the list of all your relevant information related to the data sources you're using. And if it has multiple data sources, then you're going to kind of want to section it out for each data source. First thing you're going to have is data source name. Then you're going to have the description. Normally would describe, excuse me, what the data is, what data is contained in the data source. So is it calendar data? Is it aggregate data, things like that. So just maybe a brief description of what that data source is. Your data range. So basically the time frame of your data, 1 year, 2 years. So basically knowing, okay, what's the span of data that your data holds. Refresh schedule. How often is the data refreshed? This can be different than the dashboard refresh because you could have your dashboard refreshing at, let's say, a weekly interval, but your data is actually being updated on a daily interval. So just making sure you kind of specify in there what's the refresh schedule on the actual data source itself. And when I'm talking about data source, I'm referring to the actual, not so much the individual tables and things. That will be in later sections, but whatever the data source is that you see in the data pane in Tableau, that's what I'm kind of defining as the data source. Database. So basically listing out for this data source, what database is it in or what's the file in? So basically, okay, is it in Oracle? Is it in SQL Server? Is it in Hadoop? Or is it just an Excel spreadsheet? But basically kind of defining there, okay, what is the database? Queries. If you're using custom SQL, this is where you would kind of attach those queries. And situations that I have had to do this, all I would do is I would go into Tableau, I would just copy the custom SQL, paste it into a notepad document, and then I would just copy that text. I would embed that text document in the documentation itself. So that way, if they wanted to look at it, they could just click on it, bring it up, and easily kind of navigate through the query or queries. Schema, if your data source is actually in a database, okay, what schema is the data schema or schemas is the data coming from? And again, this is going to help for navigation if for troubleshooting of issues. Tables. So what tables now are being used? Let's say you're in an Oracle database, you have the schema listed. Okay, what tables are the data being pulled from? And this information should be in a table where, okay, what's the name of the table? Give a brief description of the table. So basically, okay, what data is that table storing? And the refresh schedule of that table, which again could be different than the other refreshes, because you could have daily refreshes of table, maybe weekly refreshes of the data source, and maybe a monthly refresh of the dashboard, for example. And then also listing out the joins. And this would be key because especially when it comes to data you find out is missing, having the joins listed could be a big key in figuring out why data is being excluded. So again, listing out the tables that are being used in the join, what is the actual join, and basically just a brief description of the join itself. Next couple sections, report illustration. This is pretty simple. This is just where you're going to embed screenshots of each tab of your dashboard. And then that's going to allow the person who's reviewing the document to not have to actually go out to the dashboard itself on the server to see it. So just having those screenshots in there. Excuse me. Available filters. This is where you're going to basically kind of have a bulleted list of the filters that you're making available for the users to filter the dashboard by. If you have, normally what I start with is I list out basically all my global filters, just have a bulleted list of all my global filters. And then I start sectioning out after that. If I start having specific filters for certain tabs in the dashboard, or even down to specific views in the dashboard itself, I would just kind of have those subsectioned off. And basically I would set it up in the same format that you've kind of sectioned off if you have multiple data sources. And then make sure, if it's not self-explanatory, what the filter is that you're filtering on. Based on the name, that you maybe just put a little brief description of what that filter is. Normally it'd be just name a filter hyphen and then just a brief description. Predefined filters. This section will list out all the global filters that you're using that you're not making available for the user to filter by. Normally this would be filtering that you're doing on the data source beforehand, such as applying row level security based on the logged in user, or additional filters that maybe you're filtering everything on a specific line of business or a specific time period that you don't want allow the users to change. Those would be the kind of things you would have in this predefined filter section. Parameters / sets. This is going to list all the parameters and sets that are being used in the dashboard. That for parameters that will allow the users to either dynamically alter the calculations or thresholds, or also parameters that you put in for view swapping, and also any sets that are being used to either display in the visuals or being used as filters. And basically in those tables, you're gonna have it in the same table. First column is going to be parameter / set. So what's the name of the parameter of the set? What's the data type? And data type is key. That I'll be quickly identify, because maybe an error you have is maybe type based. Maybe something's just not working right because of the way you have it set up. Maybe, let's say maybe you have something set up as a number, but maybe you need to switch it to a string. If you go into the document and take a look at that, you can easily identify the data type. And then again, having a description of what the parameter is used for, or the set is used for. Now go into kind of the main crux of the document, which will probably be your two biggest sections. First off being the calculated fields. This is just going to be a specific list of the calculations that are in the data source. And again, if you have multiple data sources, go ahead and subsection them off like you've done in the other areas. And the information that you're going to have in here, again, all this is going to be listed in a table with the following things in that table. You want to put first, okay, what's the name of that calculation? So list out the field name. Is it a dimension or a measure? So you can just identify, is it a calculation or is it line of business or something like that? Data type, again, for the same reasons I mentioned before, listing out what the data type is. And then the actual calculation code. Most people are going to be looking at this document, are going to be probably developers and other team members. So basically what I've done here is I just go into Tableau, pull up the calculation, and then I just copy the code directly out of Tableau and paste it into the document. Most people, like I said, most people are going to be looking at the document, are using Tableau, are familiar with how to code in Tableau. And so they're going to understand the coding mechanisms that are in there. So there should be no real modifications that maybe need to be done, except for maybe spacing and adding extra line breaks or so on, just to kind of segment the code out to make it more readable. But it should be pretty simple of just going in, copying the code, pasting it into the document. But let's say if you didn't want to do that, that's fine. You could also go in and just kind of spell out the calculation in your own words. Description, basically, definition of the field. We make this field optional because part of our design standards is when we're going through creating a data source, we try to name our measures and our dimensions in business terms that everybody understands the meaning. But we have this column in there. If something is not self-explanatory based on the name, then you can put a little blurb in this column to kind of just define out what this column is actually used for. So after that, then we've got the final section here, which is the fields in the data source. So this is, this section is going to have all the fields that are being pulled directly from the data source into your dashboard. And again, multiple data sources, again, section it off the same way as you have previously. And this is going to contain, again, field name. So what's the name of the field you're pulling in? Is it a dimension or a measure? What's the data type? And then what is the physical database table it's in? And what's the physical database column that data resides in? And this comes in handy specifically, again, when you're trying to troubleshoot data issues. Knowing where in the database to go and see the values is going to help greatly in that process and cut out time and having to try to track it down. And then again, having a description in there as well. Again, being optional. We do the same thing with the actual fields. We try to put those in business terms so they're easily understood. So again, with that being said, just to kind of summarize briefly everything we went through. Again, you may not like to do documentation. I know I don't, but it is a necessary evil that does need to be done. And it may take some time to create depending on the complexity. I've had it take as little as a half a day to as long as 2 weeks. But again, with it being 2 weeks, that's normally that's more the exception than the rule. Normally it should be pretty simple. But again, based on the complexity. But in the end, excuse me, if it saves time and frustration in the understanding of the dashboard, then it's definitely worth the investment. So the things that we went over today, talked about why you should do it, mainly for audit purposes and avoiding excessive time, reverse engineering, how you do it, the tools you should use, kind of the formatting you should use, and then basically what should be in the document in your template with the 11 sections that we've got listed there. So with that being said, I appreciate everybody's time and attention, and I will open it up to questions.
Hey, Scott, are there varying levels of documentation? I was thinking about the user experience and the documentation made available to them. For example, you know, in the dashboard versus maybe could this be overwhelming for the user, or how do you manage that?
I've done it a few ways. I've done what I'm specifically referring to here is technical documentation. I have done it to where it's been combined. And when you do it that way, you're going to kind of definitely take into account your user base, kind of section off the two different pieces of it. what we do now is, though, this is strictly technical documentation for our developers and our team. And then we actually have user documents for all of our dashboards that we leave up to the actual product owners to kind of coordinate and put together. So I would not expect what I just went through here, a normal user to go in and have to read. This is more for developers and anybody who's doing analysis, design, and development of dashboards.
Understood. Okay. There was I see one question from the audience in terms of, do you have any examples you could show of that provide an overview of the type of documentation you were describing?
I do have an example I just came up with. Due to working with the bank, though, I'm not at liberty to share that. I tried to go through and get clearance to do that. I can share the template that I created that's got all these sections in it, so that I can share with the team. And I can send that out, and then Steve, you guys can make it available to everybody. But as far as an actual example where I've created the document, I apologize. I'm not I'm not able to show that.
Yeah, understood. Hey, I see, one second. A question from Dan. He wants to know about ways to build documentation into the solution itself. Are there ways that you do that as a
not currently. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I would love for Tableau or there to be or even a third-party tool to have a good way to be able to pull out that information. I know with some of the third-party tools I've looked at, they actually take your workbook, they look at the XML and pull out like worksheets and all the fields associated with your worksheets and things like that. I would love for Tableau and hopefully in the near future to have some kind of mechanism to be able to do that. But as it stands right now, no, this is a separate Word document that I put together. And well, for the products I'm responsible for, it's a 100% manual process that we put together, and then we just make available on our SharePoint site for consumption.
Well, that makes sense. And I know we've done, oh, sorry, Aaron, I was going to say on some of our dashboards, we've put some icons in there that have links that jump you over to the documentation.
Yeah. And we've done we've done the same thing. Like we have ours embedded in a portal. So we have a portal in place, and we embed all of our Tableau dashboards in the portal, and we have links to the user guide. We just now started working on our documentation. So we haven't kind of figured out how we're going to, or if we're going to make that available in our dashboards for the normal end user. But at least from a user perspective, normal user, we do have links out there, and we've also investigated putting info icons and things like that in our dashboards.
Yeah, and just to chime on from some of the things that I've developed in the past, I have like a landing page. So similar to when you would open up an application, like if this was the application that I was opening, I would have the title of what the dashboard is. And then down below, there might be an info icon where if you hover over it, if it's a small tidbit of documentation, it would exist in just a tooltip. But if not, there's an icon that basically jumps you to a Word document that opens that has all of the documentation in there. And then it also allows you, by having that home page, landing page per se, to jump to specific tabs within a dashboard. So we do have quite a few questions on here. And so I want to start rattling those off. So how do you notify your users of release notes, for example, enhancement or bug fixes?
We have a process in place. We have what we call our client engagement team, which is kind of the go-between between us and the business. And we have weekly meetings with them. So they're fully involved in our process. And they're actually the ones that come to us with updates and enhancements from the business. So they send out notifications when we have bug fixes, when we have enhancements and things like that. It's just a email they send out to our user base. It could be our entire user base or just the user base for the specific product, but they're the ones that kind of handle all that communication.
Perfect. And then do you generally document as you develop the dashboard, or do you retrospectively document after the completion of the dashboard?
I've done it both ways. I would recommend kind of doing a little bit as you go. Especially for the parts that you know won't change, related to specific, okay, like the summary in the beginning, where you're listing out all the high level business information. You know that there's a very minimal chance that that's going to change. So I would go ahead and document that. Normally dashboard process, you're getting the data source hammered out, and then you would hammer out the kind of the design of the dashboard. So once you're pretty confident that, I would say, things are finalized, specifically when it comes to your data source and things like that, I would go ahead and document. The sooner the better, to get it in there, because then you may only need to make a few tweaks at the end. Once your dashboard is out, it's been tested, and it's getting ready to get moved to production. There may be only a few tweaks you have to make based on defects you've had to resolve during testing and things like that. So I would definitely document as you go, but there are situations to where if things are pretty minimal, that you could definitely wait till the end. But I would recommend documenting as you go.
Perfect. And then there's two questions kind of related towards the user versus developer documentation. So do you have recommendations for what to include for the user documentation versus the developer documentation?
Yeah, I would say for the user documentation, users are not going to care about calculated fields and fields that you're using in your data source, things like that. So a lot more the technical aspects of it. I would say in your user documentation, definitely include some of the high level business things in there. So who the product owner is, what the line of business is intended for, purpose of the report, things like that. But mainly your user document should be okay navigating the dashboard. How's your user, kind of walk your user through a sample walkthrough of the dashboard. How to interact with the filters, how to interact if there's any hover over functionality in there, how to do that, maybe calling out specific advanced stuff in the dashboard that you want them to pay attention to. So it's more on a high level walkthrough of the dashboard that it is including the details behind the dashboard actually functioning.
Perfect. And I'll just add on to that. If you have, one of the things that we noticed, if we were sending other analysts to a dashboard, a lot of times they would come to us as a developer and say, hey, how did you create that calculation? Or like, what's going into this? So sometimes having a tooltip over that specific field that you're showcasing on the dashboard for the developer's sake, if it's not going up to an executive or something, is very useful, because then they don't have to reach out to you as much. So it kind of leads to the next question. Are there anything?
Just real quick, Aaron, onto that point. To add on to Aaron's point, having, like I said, taking most of that, what was in the summary section, and putting that in your user document is good as well. So I think it's definitely a good idea to also have the developer information in there as well, specifically for what Aaron mentioned, if there's questions related to the calculations and things, because the developers and the business owner alike should be familiar with the business rules behind the scenes. So the more people that you can have in there for the users to reach out to, the better.
Yep. And I would say one good use case of this is if you look at the audit, sometimes in their function, they'll be working with one team and they might not have one definition for a business term. And then you work with another team and they have a different definition for that same business term. Well, if both of those end users go in to that dashboard, they're looking at however you have defined that business, whether it was with the first team you worked with or a combination of the first team and the second team. And so they might be confused or have questions regarding why their numbers are different and that view comparative to what the previous reporting they were receiving. So having those little tidbits of information for them is very useful. One of the other questions we have is, are there any things you do inside your actual workbook and dashboards to make things easier for people to re-engineer or troubleshoot?
Yeah, there are a few things. I'm trying to think of stuff right off the top of my head. We do have templates. I recently created a dashboard to where basically we took Tableau and created a web application. So kind of using, we don't dumb it down at all. But basically what we do is anything that maybe requires a similar format, we just say, hey, go out, look at this workbook, and then kind of edit it as you need to where the set of pages and stuff is in there. They can go in and see how we have different functionality set up for instance, we have sheet swapping using parameter actions in the dashboard I'm talking about. So being able to go out and kind of see, okay, here's how the data source is set up. Here's how the parameter actions are set up. And then here's how it all goes together in the dashboard. So nothing really kind of template wise. But just being able to go out and look at that. And then from a replication standpoint, being able to, once you get that initial, the initial page created or sheet set up the way you want, then it becomes very repetitive and being able to just, okay, duplicate and then swap things out with what you need. Those are probably the two biggest things I think I've learned going throughout this. So not so much having a template in place that people can go on and follow, but just kind of imparting that knowledge and just giving them an example of, okay, here's a completed dashboard with all these different features, and then just pointing to the specific part of the dashboard in the workbook to kind of go back and take a look at.
Awesome. And then just a note, sometimes if you're creating like a really complex calculated field or a calculated field that some people might not be aware of, adding a comment into that calculated field is very useful.
Yep.
Perfect. And then the last question we have is, I have dashboards on an internal Tableau server. How do you suggest I should share documents related to the dashboards? I have more than 50 dashboards and my audience is more than 250 users.
There's a few ways. I know we talked about earlier, maybe modifying those dashboards a little bit to include, I apologize. Maybe modifying those dashboards to include either an info icon or you maybe put a URL action in the dashboard that is a link out to where those documents are stored. I would definitely put all those documents in a centralized location to where they're all in the same place. And you can either section them off by dashboard product or things like that. I'm not sure if there's a way that you may be able to actually put the document itself in the dashboard. I haven't investigated that route yet, but I would say the easiest way is just having some mechanism to where you can provide the URL for them to get to, whether it's like we have embedding our dashboards in our portal that we use and just having links at the top to go to the dashboard, or I'm sorry, not the dashboard, but the documentation. So we have links that go to the user guide. We have links that go to a glossary of terms that we have for the dashboard. Or like I said, just putting an info icon or something in there. Those to me would probably be the best methods of there. And some may be feasible, some may not. But I would definitely put it on a shared drive that, or get a shared drive set up that for the 250 users you want to have access. If they not allowed to have access into where you're keeping most of your stuff, get a separate shared drive set up that they would be able to have access to be able to get to all that.
Perfect.
And in case folks haven't seen it, I think this is a topic that I was asking if there's additional interest in, deep diving I framed it out as, building user-friendly dashboards and tools. It sounds like we're starting to go there a bit in the conversation of, hey, how do you allow that user access to the documentation that's meaningful to them? How do you new folks come on, have access to your dashboard, how do they get onboarded without human beings actually like, walking them through the tool and all those tips and tricks in terms of, embedding explanations, calculations, etc. So if you have interest in that, please, give a thumbs up, give a heart emoji in the chat, and we can cue that up as we continuing this conversation. Sorry, Aaron, back to you.
Oh, no, you're good.
Oh, all right. Well, Scott, thank you very much. There was the one request was from, I think it's lost in the chat, but whether the folks would be able to access a PDF of what you presented to them in terms of the overview.
Yeah,
a lot of interest there.
Yeah, I can send you, Steve, I'll send you the PowerPoint and the actual template, and then
excellent.
you can post it wherever you need to.
Excellent. Thank you. And while I'm thinking of it, if you are not, 1 second. I was putting the link to our LinkedIn page. Anywhere else we could post some of this material, Aaron? It comes to mind.
I could potentially try to post it to the splash page, but I'm not sure how to do that. I would say the best way to receive some of the content is the videos or this meeting is being recorded, and it will be published to Tableau's YouTube page. So that's one way to search it. You just have to search Columbus Tableau user group, and then typically the month that you're looking for. But the best place to receive the material is going to be on LinkedIn. And then we can send out an email with the content as well for anyone who attended the call.
Yep.
Perfect.
So if you,
So
I just took your advice. I Googled Columbus Tableau user group YouTube, and I see our June 25th meeting, September 10th meeting. You can see a handful of meetings there. So
yep.
excellent.
Yeah, and I think we just recently started putting the meetings up there. So moving forward, they should all be on YouTube.
Are we on TikTok, Aaron? Do you know yet?
We are not. I do not do TikTok.
Take that as an action item.
Who in the group wants to manage TikTok for us? Awesome. Right. So
thanks,
I think that leaves.
Thanks to everybody for all the Browns love too.
Yeah.
Much appreciated. Go ahead, Aaron. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. I was going to say, so I think that leads us into our next session, which is fairly new. We'll see how this goes. But essentially what we're trying to do with this session is get the community more involved with one another, making connections in terms of content, best practices, tips, tricks, tidbits of information. You build a great dashboard and you want to share that. All those things are things that we think are great for the community to share across for one another. And so we really want to open this up and make this, whoever's on the call, this month we're going to do it kind of ad hoc-y per se. And so if you have something that you think is really cool, or you found a link online, or you found a tip, trick, tidbit of information that you or your company utilize and you think it'd be beneficial for the rest of the group to know, feel free to raise your hand. What we'll do is we'll make you able to talk. And then once you're done speaking over that short topic, we'll then go ahead and move you back to an attendee and then allow the next person to speak. So the way that we're going to do that is by allowing you just to raise your hand. So if you raise your hand, we'll move you to the panelist and then move you back down.
Can I add one thing, Aaron? I think you did a fantastic job. The one additional category that I would add, and it's already happened organically, I've been trying to have it happen in the chat, which is asking folks, hey, would you have more interest in learning about this? And so some of that comes up as people are asking questions, but we also want to use that as a mechanism. So maybe you're out there right now and you're going, I don't have anything to present. I'm a little, maybe next meeting you want to take a 3 to 5 minute session, but maybe there's a hot topic brewing that you want to reach out and say, hey, I'd love to learn more about this. And either that's someone that could connect with you within the community, or there's enough interest, and then we can queue it up as a tug topic. So just adding that caveat, Aaron.
Absolutely. And then what we're going to try to do with this session moving forward, today we do have 30 minutes, which is a lot, but since it's the first time, we wanted to give as much time as possible. But what we're going to try to do with this session is every time that we have a meeting, we do the introductions, and then directly following those introductions, we'll have roughly 10 minutes for just community shares, whether it's asking questions, hey, I need help with this, hey, here's a cool tip, trick, whatever you want to present on. 10 minutes to that. You can either email us beforehand if you know you want to speak on the topic, or just feel free to raise your hand. You don't have to have any material to present or anything like that. It's really just supposed to be organic. And then we'll actually move on to content following that for the rest of the meetings in 2021. So with that, we'll tee it up if anyone in the community has anything.
Who's feeling?
Drum roll, please.
Anyone feeling brave? Oh, we have a
Not
hand
one.
raised.
Let's scroll all the way up to the top. Bear with us, this is our first time doing it as well. All right. So go ahead and speak, Wayne.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can.
Great, awesome. So my name is Wendy Wong. I'm an analyst at Worthington Industries. I actually work in Steve's team. So I figure, I would just take a quick 5 minute to share with everybody, how to use collapsible containers in Tableau. Is a quick and easy thing to do. If you haven't done it yet, feel free to follow along. If you have a workbook with worksheets open, you can do that, or you can just open up Superstore data sets. So it's my first time using Zoom to share screen, so bear with me.
So there should be a perfect. We're able to see you now. And there should be a button at the very bottom that says share screen.
Can you guys see my screen?
You just see your video currently.
What about now?
Oh,
There we go.
You see it? You see it?
look at that.
Okay, all right. Trial and error. All right, so it's just gonna be a quick topic. So this is an example, a dashboard that I built for our weekly sales and operations planning meeting. So prior to this dashboard, how they're doing putting together templates is purely through Excel. So we have a bunch of Excel users who are used to looking at data table, and now we figure we'll come up with a more automated templates or a way for them to present their data. So in this example, I've used collapsible container. So for example, this first graph, it shows demand forecast. So it really just shows, what is our forecast and what is our shipment so far. So what is the performance against forecast. At the upper right corner, there is a show data table button. Users can click on that button, and then a data table shows up. It contains essentially the exact same data as what is shown in the graph, except in the table format. And this is a great way to provide confidence to Excel users as they're transitioning to Tableau. And really, there are many ways to use a collapsible container. A data table is one of them. It's great to help Excel users to transition to Tableau, as I mentioned before. And another good use case I find with collapsible container is that when your users want to dig deeper on certain information or want to see additional information occasionally. So not always, but sometimes they just want to dig deeper. So how I will have that set up is have a collapsible container with multiple worksheets. And then in the main screen, the users can essentially just click through the different items or different products, and the information in the collapsible container will change simultaneously. And when they're done with that, extra information or that pop-up window, they can just essentially close that pop-up screen or collapsible container. And yeah, so there are many ways to use this. You can, use your creativity if you want. You can even put collapsible containers inside collapsible containers if you would. And now I will just take a couple minutes and show you how quick and easy it is to the one into your dashboard. So, and again, if you would like, feel free to follow along. So the first step is you want to put a floating container on your canvas, and then pick the worksheets you're going to put in the container, drag it out, hold down the shift key, and drop it in. And you can put in multiple worksheets if you like. In this example, I'm just using one. And let me clean it up a little bit real quick. Then you'll just resize it, put it wherever you like. And then the next step is, actually a good habit to have, I think, when you're using collapsible container, is that to always rename your container. So just do, say, the main table. And then now you want to click on your container and add a button. And something to point out here is you would want to click on your container, not your worksheets. So you can see a difference now. I'm clicking on my worksheets. How you can tell is that one, under item hierarchy, worksheets is highlighted instead of the container. The other way you can tell is that this kind of outer frame on the worksheets is gray. If you double click on the tab on top, it turns blue. So now you're actually selecting the container itself. Then you click on the drop down, you add show hide button, and add its button. And the first one, you can select the item to show or hide. So here we'll select our container, which we have renamed the demand table. And then you can choose the button style. I'm just going to use a text button. You can insert an image if you like. And then here ask when the item is shown. So meaning when my collapsible container is shown, what would I want the button to say? So here I'll just say close data table. Let's put a border around it. And when it's hidden, I want it to give the option of open data table. Right, let's expand it a little bit. Let's see. Right, and now you have it, a collapsible container. So just a quick tips, in case for anyone who has never used a collapsible containers before. So back to you, Steve and Aaron.
Perfect. Thanks, Wayne. And so we did have a couple people in the chat say that there's another topic, the toggle help screen, which allows you to show hide containers as well. So we'll showcase that link to you. And then Dan Daffler said he has used this for building into Tableau visualizations, instructions for end users to use that Tableau visualization. And then I'll join this group and where does this show contain a work for reader? That I am not sure. Winnie, do you know if it works for reader as well?
I believe so, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think that show hide button is available in 2020.2, I believe, or 2020.1. So as long as you're on that version or above, you should have that functionality. Perfect. Anyone else have a quick tidbit of information?
Thanks, Winnie.
Yes, definitely.
It's almost
Way
like
to
we
be
planned
brave.
that. Just coincidence that Winnie was so prepared and works at Worthington Industries. Pure coincidence.
So we have an individual say, how can I join this group and where? We have a splash page that we post information to. So I can share that link in the splash.
And as Aaron's doing that again, feel free to throw into the chat if there's any other topics that are top of mind right now that you'd like us to consider, and or topics that you are passionate about that you would like to share, even if it's outside of the quick, these sharing with your learning from your peers sessions at the next Tug. And again, if you'd rather do that via email, we can certainly put our emails in there, or hit us up on the splash page, the LinkedIn page. Not yet with TikTok, but.
Perfect. Do you have any other brave souls in the audience? Feel free to raise your hand.
I think next time we'll quintuple this count. That's my prediction.
And one of the things that we're potentially looking at doing is if you are joining us or speaking during these tidbit sessions, is still working out the details, but maybe doing some type of swag or something directly from Tableau where you can go onto their website, order something and have it shipped to you. Again, still in the works, so more to come on that, but just a way to incentivize you guys to speak up on anything that you think is great for the community to learn.
Yeah, we finally realized that Tableau used to give us a little bit of money to do stuff like that at our in-person events. So we should have a nice little bankroll accumulated from all these virtual events. So maybe we'll just wait like 10 more virtual meetings and then it'll be like we'll have a car raffle. And Scott, I saw Scott, you put in there about capabilities for embedding Tableau and Tableau to create a web application. So absolutely. I know that's something we taught. I think it was one of the last in-person meetings. I was doing this because we did almost like stations when we met over at, I think it was at our innovation center. And I believe Zach Geis presented on that at one of the panels. That's something we could certainly, I think would be an excellent topic to queue up. And then while I'm thinking about it, I don't know if you all saw speaking of Zach Geis, and I think Zen Master Josh Smith will be on the Fringe Festival tomorrow. I don't know if you're familiar with the Fringe Festival.
Yep.
Zach is talking on tips for modern design, and Josh is with Robert Janzik, storytelling, mentorship, and friendship in the data form. So I'll put that in case folks haven't seen that. I'll throw that in the chat. It's like 2 days. Battle of the Banks. That's fantastic.
Do you want to share your screen so people can see?
So I'm all over the place now. I'm like,
you're good.
Squirrel.
So the Fringe Fest is a two-day festival put on by the community for the community. So I like to think of it as a mini conference, but a lot more information just kind of thrown at you quickly. With this, I believe there's like 37 different presenters, and they're all people that are pretty well known throughout the community. And so there's tips of just how to storytelling with your data, how to get started, how's it going, dashboard design, documentation, making the most out of your dashboards. And so this is tomorrow and Friday. even if you have meetings throughout the day, would be a good thing just to throw on in the background as you're working.
You said skip your meetings, even if you have meetings, just decline
Yeah,
them all.
just skip them.
I mean, you can roll. Can you see what I'm showing? You can see some of the. Yeah, it's from like 8 to 8 for 2 days. It's kind of like Woodstock. Like the original Woodstock, not the 90s Woodstock where everyone burned everything and got completely out of control. Like the first Woodstock without the mud.
Perfect. So I know Dan has posted a few things in the chat today. So I did reach out to him in chat, but I'm kind of putting him on the spot now and seeing if he would be willing to quickly talk about some of the articles that he's posted in the chat. If you are willing to, just feel free to raise your hand.
I love the Data Plus Science page. I believe that's
Is there a
Zen.
recording? I'm not sure if there's a recording on the Tableau Fringe Festival, but I'm not sure. There is a recording for this, but if there's any time where you present something and you need to edit it out, we can take that out.
Thanks. Sorry.
You're good. Anyone else throughout the community? And if you feel unprepared, that's okay. Feel free to ping us between now and January, and then maybe we can slate you to speak real quickly can be anywhere from 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever works best for you, just to briefly talk about something. If there's something that you're struggling with in your dashboards or your development process, feel free to raise your hand on that too, because what we want to try to do is connect people across the community. So Scott, we started around 1 o'clock today, and so we're just closing up.
Sorry, Scott.
But there will be a recording of today's session.
We should have it up by, usually takes a little bit of time. I'll have it posted to the LinkedIn site sometime probably tomorrow morning. You know what's interesting, Aaron? I was wondering if the chat, there's so much rich dialogue going on in this chat, but then as soon as we end the meeting, it's all gone.
Correct.
All right, I'll see what I can do about that.
What I would say is if you're part of our LinkedIn, I know we keep promoting the LinkedIn page. It's a great place to share information. Any of the links that you posted in the chat today, feel free to post on the LinkedIn channel as well.
And I'm doing my caveman technology, which is copying everything that's in the chat and then pasting it, and then I'll take the highlights out and make sure that those are available.
Perfect.
And we can leave this this event open. We will not close it down if folks want to fish through the chat as well for some of the links.
Steve, can you add the link to LinkedIn one more time to the chat?
1 second, please. Here you go. We'll post the recording, definitely post the recording up there.
Yay, we have a question in here. Does anyone know how to connect a workbook to a SharePoint data source? So has anyone in the community connected a workbook to a SharePoint data source? Feel free to raise your hand So we have a comment from Marks that says, unless it's a list, you can't. Michael says, I generally use Alteryx for that. I know during my time at Nationwide, we struggled connecting to SharePoint because of permissions that we had set up. So that might be one thing that is hindering your connections. We had to use another tool in order to connect to the SharePoint list and then bring that into Tableau. Any other questions? Content that people want to share?
If you need a note for your boss, Aaron was the one that said skip all your meetings for the next 2 days and go to Fringe Festival.
Don't
Just-
recommend doing that.
It sounds like something you'd skip work for, like going to the
All right,
Fringe
so we have one
Festival.
person who says, I've been using Cognos since 2002, so Tableau is fairly new to me. I'm having trouble wrapping my head around data sources. Is there anyone in the community who has recommendations for getting started with data sources and connections to different data sources? One thing I will say is the data source and the data transformation prep is typically the biggest component, I would say, of most of the dashboards that I build. A lot of times you want to do something in Tableau, but it's a lot easier to do that in the prep before you actually get to Tableau. And Scott, if we'll share the recording again on YouTube as well as in our LinkedIn channel. And the very first part of today, we talked about training and education. And so there'll be some great resources for that. And then Mark also put in a link to the best resource is the Tableau KB data sources. Knowledge. Okay, cool. If we don't have anything else, I'll kick it over to Steve.
Steve was furiously trying to copy down some of the links. All right, I'll get refocused. So thank you all, much appreciated. To our presenters, fantastic job again. Both to Scott, and I know Michael's not here anymore, greatly appreciate that. And very active participation today from you all on the chat and the Q&A. Again, that's much appreciated. If we can be of any additional assistance, if you have any ideas, want to ask us to broker any connections within the community, please do not hesitate. And again, we'll post the video. I'll try to get a highlight of all the links out on our LinkedIn page as well. But other than that, it's been fantastic. Happy New Year, happy holidays, happy. You know, I know it's trying times. Hopefully this session put a little skip in your step, a little holiday spirit in your week. But other than that, Aaron, you want to sing us out with your favorite Christmas carol? It's okay to say
No, you don't want to hear me sing. But what I will say, there's been a lot of questions around how can you contact us or get in touch with us. LinkedIn's the best way. I know we keep iterating that. But if you have questions, feel free to email myself or Steve. I know I'm signing him up. My email is just my first name _ last name at comcast.com. Or if you connect with your Tableau representative, they can connect you with us as well.
Aaron _ham at comcast.com.
Yes, Aaron _ham at last name.
And two M's,
at
two M's.
comcast.com. And we want to thank you guys all. We know it's been a trying year, but for staying involved and engaged in our community, we hope that 2020 brings us hopefully more in-person meetings than what we were able to host this year. With that, happy holidays and stay safe. Thank you.